Hello and welcome everyone. You'll forgive me if I sound a bit awkward. I am recovering from a cold, but nevertheless, we have to discuss the upcoming fall 2025 anime season. We are going to quickly go through the sequels that are relevant, at least to me specifically, before we get into the new shows that have caught my eye. And hopefully this video will help you to determine what shows you want to try out from a new, fresh season of anime. We do have the final season of My Hero Academia, and because this show has been so uneven from season to season, it's hard to know how excited we should really be for the end of it, but at the very least, this is a story that has been being told, at least in anime form, for almost 10 years. It'll probably be 10 years by the time this season is over, and that does mean something. This has been a very impactful generational show for the anime community, and it is certainly relevant to finally see it come to a conclusion. I just hope that conclusion will be a memorable one. To Your Eternity is returning for a third season after 3 years, and this is another show that has been a bit inconsistent for me. Some arcs I really like, other ones not so much. I do think this season is interesting given how season 2 ended and the time skip that will be present between these two seasons, so I'm curious how the shakeup in terms of what the world of this show looks like, considering it should be a much more sizable shakeup compared to the other time skips that have been present throughout the series. It does make me interested to see what happens going forward. The remake of Ranma 1/2 returns for a second season, and while I did have some qualms with this series, which you can hear all about in my review of it, I am looking forward to more of this. I did ultimately like this show, certainly a lot more than any of my criticisms may have suggested, because this is still a fun, enjoyable, comedic slice-of-life series. And I am curious to see how new characters will be introduced, what roles they will play, if they'll be recurring or just one-off, and how the existing characters continue to develop their various relationships. Spy Family comes back for its third season, and as someone who has enjoyed Spy Family pretty much throughout since it started, I am very much so looking forward to seeing more of this, and I imagine most people will, because generally people really like Spy Family, so I don't think there's much to say here. You've probably already seen this show, and if you haven't, what have you been doing for the past 3 years? One Punch Man also returns for its third season after 6.5 years, and yes, it is being done by JC Staff again, who did the second season, as opposed to Madhouse, who did the first season. And I know a lot of people will hear that and immediately not want to even give this a chance, and you know what? If that's your perspective, fair enough. Certainly the show does not feel exactly the same as it did during season 1. But if you are someone who is more plot focused, you're probably going to get something out of season 2 and this upcoming season if you haven't watched them already, because they do focus a lot more on that with Garo and his backstory and his plans. Whereas season 1 didn't quite have that type of focus in the same way. So they do feel different in addition to the animation quality being different. But as someone who does want to see more of that story, I am cautiously optimistic for this new season, even though I understand many people will not be. And we also have the second season of Campfire Cooking in Another World, which was a surprisingly good isekai series from a couple years ago. And even though the premise is very silly, I mean, this guy can basically order anything he wants off of Amazon and cook whatever he wants because of it, but it is a rather wholesome show, and I think if you can get past the absurdity of the gimmick for this show, you will enjoy it. It's not going to knock your socks off, it's not going to be the best thing you've ever seen, or even the best isekai you've ever seen, but as something to just throw on Tuesdays, which are generally pretty slow days for anime to begin with, I think you will get more out of this than you might initially expect to. Fresh off the heels of season 2 of Dandadan, we have Sanda from Science Saru, and this does kind of feel like Science Saru finding a way to do more Dandadan in between seasons of Dandadan, because this is certainly a similar show, at least on the surface, because the premise is a bit absurd, but it does allow for a lot of the same comedy and over-the-top animation style that Science Saru has certainly become known for over the years. Having a main character who can turn into a buff version of Santa Claus and is seemingly somehow related to a Santa Claus family of some sort is definitely just the right amount of absurdity to appeal to people who are itching for more Dandadan while waiting for season 3. Now, I do hope this show doesn't just live and die off of trying to be similar to Dandadan. Certainly, I don't think the original story is trying to do that, but inevitably those comparisons are going to be made, and I hope that it can find a way to stand on its own, while still appealing to people who are looking for a show with a similarly absurd premise and a lot of fun action. Next, we have a show where I don't know if it'll appeal to everybody, but certainly it has caught my eye, and that is Shabake. A series set in the Edo period dealing with a character who has always been kind of sickly and yet has the ability to see demons or yokai, whatever term the show ends up using, and a couple of them have aided him throughout his life. Now, all of a sudden, he is witness to a murder that very well may involve supernatural forces, and then these murders keep happening again and again and again. So in essence, what we have here is a supernatural murder mystery involving yokai, and that is enough to sell me on the series. It also looks like it will be well animated and very well could be a sleeper hit of the season, because I really haven't seen a lot of people talk about this series, and maybe it's because of the Edo period setting. Maybe that isn't appealing to enough people. I guess it could be somewhat off-putting, at least compared to if it had been set in a modern era, but certainly I wouldn't let something like that detract from your opinion of the show. If supernatural murder mystery sounds interesting, I would definitely keep my eye on this series and give it a shot if you can. Next, we have an original series from PA Works called Dusk Beyond the End of the World. The premise here is that the main character got cryogenically frozen and woke up after the apocalypse. He is greeted by a familiar face, that of his girlfriend. However, this is not his girlfriend. This is a robot that has her face, but different hair and a different name. Nevertheless, one of the first things she does is propose to him, and in doing so, we find out about this world and what is different. An organization called Owl controls people's lives, and people are not allowed to simply marry whoever they want. Their marriage is decided by a program called Elsie. Ultimately, the main character decides to go off with this girl and travel and explore this world while hoping that eventually, somewhere, he could find his original girlfriend. There is a lot to find interesting in this premise. And PA Works is certainly known for high production value, and that is definitely true here based on the PV. However, not every series PA Works makes is a hole-in-one, so to speak, and certainly I could see a world where, despite the promise of this premise, where we learn more and more about the nefarious reasons why this organization and why this program are controlling who people can and can't marry, it is still a series where you have to have a little bit of caution and trepidation before going into it, simply because it is a PA Works original. It could turn out to be great. It could turn out to not be so great based on their track record. So something to keep in mind, but that shouldn't dissuade you from trying out this series if it sounds interesting to you, because it definitely has a lot of potential. And keeping with the post-apocalyptic theme, we have the show I am probably looking forward to the most from this season, which is Touring After the Apocalypse. This is very similar, at least in outward appearance, to something like Girls Last Tour. Two characters literally on motorbikes going around exploring the world after the apocalypse. Granted, this is certainly presented in a more cheery light, and there are definitely questions that I have regarding how these characters ended up here. Nevertheless, a show about two characters going around and exploring a world that has ended and yet still being able to find and show off the beauty in it is 100% something that is right up my alley, and I really want to watch this show weekly, save for the fact that it is a Saturday series and there are a lot of shows premiering on Saturday, which is not uncommon, and it has prevented me from watching certain shows weekly that I wanted to, simply because I couldn't handle all of those shows in one day, and this may end up being something that I can't watch weekly because there's a whole bunch of sequels that I'll have to watch weekly instead. Hopefully I could find the time for it, but even if not, this is definitely the new show that I am looking forward to the most at the moment. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the shows that we discussed today and what shows you are looking forward to from the fall 2025 anime season. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, take care everyone. Look forward to the next video.